Hello, my name is Sarah. I'm a tarot card reader, and I've got an open general collective reading. It's timeless. It's timeless. Perhaps relevant whenever it finds you. But I did pull these cards on the 5th of May. And then I just wasn't really feeling up to recording anything last week, so I didn't. So I'm doing them this week on the 15th of May. I am sort of feeling to mention that, I think, because there was a particular astrological transit that I might as well tell you what it was, seeing as I've brought it up. Just bear with me. Okay. It was Juno retrograde. So the asteroid Juno was retrograde and opposing Uranus at 26 degrees of Scorpio Taurus. And Pluto, it was retrograde in Aquarius as well. So I don't know whether that is the specific day that Pluto turned retrograde in Aquarius. Not entirely sure, but I think Pluto spends quite a lot of time retrograde. I think it's maybe like half-ish of the year. It's quite a common occurrence. But so that was on the 4th. That was on the 4th of May, and I pulled these cards on the Monday. And it's just, I remember when I sat with them, there was quite a strong sort of vibe of astrology. Okay, so I've brought timing. I've said that the reading is timeless, and then very much brought timing into it. But an astrological transit, the energy of that can kind of be around beyond the day that things are exact. So I'm probably saying it for a reason. Okay, so there's some information in my description box, just as a general kind of guide for watching online tarot readings, or certainly these ones that I do. My name is Sarah. Have I said that? Don't know. Yeah, I've got notes on my laptop because I meditate with the cards, so please excuse me kind of more often than occasionally sort of glancing down here. Okay, so astrology. The other thing that was sort of quite strong with this was this sense of it being like a check-in, like a bit of a check-in kind of vibe, because it brought in a reading that I did quite recently called Cosmic Timing. There were 2 parts to it, and that was actually talking about the energy of a particular transit as well, Black Moon Lilith in the sign of Scorpio, in the constellation of Scorpio. So that might be worth a watch, both parts. But part 2 was the part where I was discussing the cards. So it brought in that, so it felt like it was almost like a bit of a kind of check-in of progress, maybe in some way, or just a kind of like an update, like a bit of an update. But yeah, you'd have to sort of go give that reading a bit of a watch. I added chapters to it just to make it a bit easier to navigate, and it is one of the shorter ones. I think it's about an hour. Okay, so with this one, there was something, because we've got the Fool with the 0, and then we've got Strength, which is the 8 in this deck. Usually depicted with a lemniscate It's not in this one, but because of the 0 and the 8 and the lemniscate, you know, the figure of 8 shape, they both suggest infinite. They both suggest infinite. You know, a 0, circle, round, 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 round. And the lemniscate specifically represents that, right? So the idea of infinity. And then it was like the infinite potential of, and I've put down here pure creative invention. Pure creative invention. So the Fool. So the Fool came out with sageness. Fool came out with sageness. So the Fool, with this deck, with this Pagan Otherworlds deck, it has me refer to the Hebrew alphabet quite often. And the Hebrew letter associated with the Fool is Aleph, which one of the associations or one of the meanings of Aleph is ox. So Aleph and ox. So with oxes, right, so they're a domesticated animal, but you know, there's this idea of steadfastness, which came up in that reading that I've just mentioned. So steadfastness, a kind of unwavering strength, resilience, all of that kind of thing. Reliability as well, you know, like a domesticated work animal, they're very reliable. Are they quite patient? Are they quite chill and quite patient as well, oxes? Sort of sturdy, practical animals. So it's, even though it's the Fool, which is elemental air, represented by the planet Uranus as well, it was bringing in this real Taurian vibe because of the ox. But the planet Uranus has been transiting, it's been in the sign of Taurus, I think for about 7 years, maybe a bit longer, and it moves into the sign of Gemini on July the 7th. There was also Aries was coming through in this card as well. So Aries, Taurus, which is that some of the astrology that I've just mentioned, Uranus. Yeah, Juno opposing Uranus on the Scorpio-Taurus axis. Pluto is the modern ruler of Scorpio as well, right? Okay, let's just leave that there then. So Juno retrograde opposite Uranus, Scorpio-Taurus, bit of Aries coming through in this card. The Taurus as well, because this Fool figure is wearing this really intricately woven vestment. So it was bringing in like the idea of the Hierophant, right, which is this kind of holy, sacred, wise figure, often depicted in a vestment of some description. So it's like this kind of amalgamation of Taurian, Uranian and Scorpionic energy with a bit of Aries thrown in, is this here today. But that's a much broader kind of cosmic energy, right? So it's like that's all there. There might be something specifically about all of those archetypes. But the Aleph ox thing was strong. So it actually kind of, it was actually sort of suggesting the more Taurian traits. heavy Taurus, right? Heavy Taurus. But in my meditation, I got the Fool observes with a beginner's mind. Hierophant has beginner's mind. Hierophant has beginner's mind. So the Hierophant was in that cosmic timing reading. And this is what I think I'm saying about it's like, it feels like a check-in or an update. It's saying like, it's almost like this is the Hierophant, but it's the Hierophant in the beginner's mind, because elemental air, the mind, right, the Fool. Mental faculties, mental space. And it was that, yeah, that gorgeous idea of Shoshin, the Japanese Zen Buddhist concept of Shoshin, which is beginner's mind. Saying like the Hierophant is in that. Just dropping in to let you know that the Hierophant's in that, yeah. Dropped into the Shoshin. Because a Hierophant type figure, right, actually, would, a Notorian as well, right, with those kind of archetypes, you could kind of attribute some level of, well, you definitely could, of knowledge and expertise to both of those archetypes. Knowledge, wisdom here with the sageness, right? The quality of being wise. And sageness, right? Okay, it's like been around for a long time. But the Japanese Zen Buddhist concept of Shoshin is, I don't know if is it ancient? It may well be, but it's been around for a long time, okay? So it's like the concept of beginner's mind is itself this really kind of ancient wisdom. It's like a wise fool. Okay, get back to the sageness in a moment. Right, so I've written the Fool observes with a beginner's mind. And then I've asked the question, what are they observing? And I'm saying observation because the owl came out as well. And that is very much one of the things that the owl talks about is observation, right? They watch their prey. They do that mad thing where they can turn their head 360 degrees as well, can't they? So they've got some kind of full picture. They can see things from all sides. How long have owls had the ability to turn their heads 360 degrees to see all around them? Okay, it's like an old way of knowing how to do things. Right, a wise owl, good judgment, very effective hunters, predators. So good judgment to be able to conduct themselves like that, especially at night in the dark when they're adapted for it though, right? So the Fool is observing, and because they're observing, they're learning. And then I've put also like no obstruction of progress. There's no obstruction of progress. So that Pluto retrograde in Aquarius that I've just mentioned, this is an energy associated with Aquarius as well. It could be a bit of a reassurance for some people that like there's no obstruction of progress, because when a planet is retrograde, they just appear, from our sort of perspective on Earth, the planet appears as if it's moving backwards, right? But then there's all this kind of stuff about parallax that is involved in that. I don't think it's actually moving backwards. Anyway, but right, the energy, like symbolically, the energy, the actual energy, not just symbolically, of what the planets are doing and how that can affect us. So very typically retrogrades can have a bit of a sense of like slowing down or reviewing or sort of going back round, which I'm not saying won't be the case at all, but if that is the case, it's not any kind of obstruction to any progress. In fact, you could say if there's any kind of review or having to go back round, go back over, any kind of slowing down, it's maybe for the sake of progress, okay? It might be aiding and assisting progress forward. It might actually be like removing obstructions, things like that. But just know the progress is there, that is happening. There's no obstruction to that. So I'll keep the owl there actually, because the author of the deck attributes like the quality or the asset of kind of being a good guide to the owl, right? It's the idea of ancient wisdom, intuition, all associated with the owl. So there's something to go back to that Shoshin and the approaching energy, or you know, the Fool is like an energy that approaches things, right? They sort of take the leap, they take themselves, they move themselves forward, right, or whatever direction. But there's something with that Shoshin that I've just mentioned, approaching something with a lack of preconceived notions. I've put in capital letters. This came through in a reading. This is why it's in capital letters. It came through in a reading, maybe the one that I've mentioned a couple of times now, the cosmic timing, and I didn't say it in the video. It was only when I reread my notes afterwards. Just really something about do not assume. It might be with something quite specific or with someone quite specific. It's like don't assume. Don't assume something about someone. Which is always good, right? It's always a good good kind of rule to live by there, but it can be it can be challenging not to do that sometimes. But there's I don't know what else to say about that. There's just there was a very clear thing about just do not assume. I've also had that as a bit of a personal message as well. So I'm passing it on here because it came through in these collective messages as well. But obviously I have more personal context. It's like if it's assuming things about people or things or whatever, it can affect your kind of belief in things, or it can create a kind of block, was how it sort of applied to me. Just be mindful about making assumptions, okay? So that might be some guidance from the owl. There was also something about like humble approach and simplicity here with the Fool. Humble approach and simplicity. Which at the start of new experiences and new kind of paths and new chapters and such things, humility can kind of be called very naturally kind of forward in us anyway, can't it? Because perhaps we don't really know what we're doing with something. We are completely new. We've met some new people. We're in a new situation. We're trying something new, like a new skill. It's kind of, it's humbling, isn't it? Because you kind of realise, you know, you have to sort of acknowledge, I don't fucking know anything about this, actually. Right? So, but as I say, yeah, that can just happen very naturally. It can just very much be the thing that's kind of called forward in a given situation. Or there might be a bit of a recommendation here. Because of the Shoshin. The Shoshin. What was it? Okay, I've written here, Shoshin. So beginner's mind kind of refers to a bit of a paradox, right? In that, like, the more you know about a subject, the more closed-minded you are to learning new things, right? Or to further learning. If you're already kind of an expert in a particular area or field, it's like you can be closed off to further learning. It's like the expert mind, or even feeling like an expert, can lead to a kind of closed-mindedness and an obstruction of progress. But there's no obstruction of progress. So it is, right? It's confirming that the Hierophant has jumped in, dipped in. They are in a beginner's mind. So the Hierophant, I would recommend watching that reading. It was talking about an individual or a type of person, a group of people. Apply it how it resonates for you, if it resonates, okay? But it is kind of confirming that they're in that. So bit of a sort of shift for someone or for some people. Because now they're in that, they've cleared their obstruction to progress, right? They're not their expertise or their experience or the kind of knowledge that they already have is still kind of feeding them and informing them, but it's not obstructing progress anymore, which might suggest that at one point it was. So it's been very important that they've got themselves into this, which they have successfully done, which is beautiful. Yes, happy days. Right. Yeah, a wise fool. I've already said that. Intellectual humility. Yeah. A deep understanding of life and the ability to see beyond the obvious. Right, yeah. So the expertise would be, or, you know, all that experience and knowledge that's already held would perhaps be the obvious stuff. So the beginner's mind puts into a state where they still have that deep understanding of life, but they're kind of they're able to see beyond the obvious. Okay. Feels significant. And I've just got a good example of, I found that, so those notes, I found the blog of a neuroscientist. I think it was just called Psyche. So he was talking about Shoshin. He'd written about Shoshin, but he gave some examples as well. The one that I've written down was in 1912. A German geophysicist and explorer, Alfred Wegener, excuse my mispronunciation, he proposed, very much counter to the perceived wisdom of the day, that the Earth is made up of shifting continental plates. So he suggested that, and apparently he was ridiculed, absolutely ridiculed, called a fool by everybody. Yeah, by expert geologists around the world, and his sort of German compatriots just ridiculed him, thought he was a fool. Referred to what he was saying as delirious ravings. And experts in the United States accused him of peddling pseudoscience. And it took decades, because that was in 1912. Before that, orthodoxy was overturned and his theory, his correct theory, was accepted.
I'm not sure what you're trying to edit.
Excuse me? Siri, how did that come on? How do I turn it off? That's never happened before. That's really curious. Is she commenting on German physicist Alfred Wegener? Excuse me, Siri. Right, okay. Right, but his, correct theory was acknowledged. Right, so there you go. Just thought that was interesting enough to kind of, to give an example of how fucking dogmatic and established certain things can be. Right, especially talking about like beliefs and facts. Fucking facts. Right, because things, I think the other example that he gave as a neuroscientist was it was something about how it just wasn't believed that the brain could generate or create new neurons. And it can, I think. So the person who theorized that the brain could do that was absolutely fucking ridiculed and mocked until, it then was proven that was absolutely what goes on. They're both scientific examples, because science can be a bit of a fecker, actually, can't it? For it's dogmatic. This is the way it is. This is bless you, science, as well, though. So anyway, I'm rambling a little bit now, but just to kind of make a bit of a point about things that are absolutely sort of just widely accepted and known and understood, like the tectonic shifting of the plates, right, of the continental plates. That once wasn't believed. So think of all the things, the pure creative invention, all of the things, right, that you perhaps wouldn't believe could be created or could happen or can happen or do happen. And it's like the Shoshin beginner's mind. Observe and learn, right? Okay, what else? I did do it. It brought in, right, I'll pick up this. The next the next card out was Strength. Okay. Oh, right, I'll mention. Okay. So again, with this Hierophant Fool figure, I did a reading in February 2023 that was I called it Big Shift, Slow Reveal. And it was a full moon in Leo message. And I think I was going to read some of it because the interpretation was written. I think I was going to read some of it here. And now I don't know how necessary that is. But I have written it here and I've highlighted it in blue. So, fucking business. I don't know. It was about the Hierophant was in it, and so was the Tower. And it was Leo energy, right? So Leo, strength represents the zodiac sign of Leo. It's the full moon in Leo. And it was talking about like these sort of rigidly held beliefs, specifically about the feminine, that were kind of coming down. And there was all this kind of Venusian stuff in there, right? Because Venus rules Taurus. But big shift, slow reveals. So it was like there were all these sort of rigidly held beliefs coming down, like being broken down. But it was this really, really sort of seismic. It's funny, right? Tectonic plates. Seismic shift that would, I suppose, reveal the fruits of itself slowly, like over a period of time. And so February 2023, man, that's over 2 years ago that I did that reading. Here we are in May 2025. It's come up again. I'll come back to that. We'll see how long the video is, and if it's not longer than the average feature-length movie, I will go back and I will read some of it, because I can't. That was the general gist. It was like big fucking shift with regards to the feminine, right? The way the feminine was kind of perceived and viewed in the sense of like beliefs. So there might be some kind of observing and learning about the feminine, some aspect of the feminine. Which means that could be a contributing factor to the no obstruction of progress either. Because rigidly held beliefs would have been a bit of an obstruction to progress. Ooh, right? So they had to transform, they had to change, something had to come down there. Something had to come down. Right, so the Fool, very open-minded, doesn't have those rigid beliefs, or, you know, at the very least is very much open to new perspectives, to different perspectives. So it might just as well, it might indicate a kind of softening of a particular kind of rigidity. Okay, so Leo, strength. This, right, so the Hebrew letter associated with this is Teth, which one of its meanings is serpent. So it brought in the idea of Lilith, Black Moon Lilith, the archetype of Lilith, represented. One of her elements of iconography is a serpent, which has a myriad of different associations and meanings. It really does. I listed them all off in that cosmic timing reading. There's a timestamp. Look for the serpent timestamp. But right, so with this, creativity, because of Lilith, because of the serpent, right, creativity was really highlighted. Because Lilith is an archetype that can be associated very strongly with creativity and sort of fertility. It's a feminine archetype as well, right? That's what I was just saying here. Referring back to that old reading and the way the feminine, observation, watching the way the feminine is viewed, really shifting. I keep saying it, man, and this is how we're talking about observation. It might very much be worth watching or skimming through that reading. Part 1 and 2, because part 1 sort of gives you all the information about the energy and the archetypes and things like that. Anyway, so strength here, strength. So yes, Lilith, the serpent. Maybe you have your own associations with serpents as well, so please pay attention to those. Be very personal to you, important. There was something in that reading about a bit of a kind of loving yet firm warning to just kind of be mindful of any urges, because someone had something to do and they had to do it by themselves. It was something only they could do. So here with strength, this energy was in that reading as well. So zodiac sign of Leo. Leo is ruled by the sun. Okay. And Leo also rules the heart. So Venus is the planet of love, harmony and connection and beautiful stuff like that. Actual beauty as well. Leo physiologically rules like the physical heart and the blood and circulatory system. But also, right, you know, the heart as well, in a symbolic sense. Because Lilith, right, Lilith is the feminine. Lilith is the feminine. It's that kind of dark feminine. That like wild Venus energy, right? Like a kind of wild Venus. Yeah, there's definitely something. So folks might start sort of recognizing that in others. They might sort of start seeing these particular traits that maybe before they have kind of they've not given much credibility to, or they've not really, I don't know. It could just be something as simple as like learning something new, right? But there's this big feminine kind of emphasis here. But the big thing was creativity, actually. It's a big thing about creativity, but also like sexuality as well. Because of Lilith, she's a bit saucy. It's a bit like sexuality, but creative sexual energy. Because they're both fire, right? Creative and sexual energy, it's fire. The sun, Leo, it's fire element. There's this like an idea of like the sun, self-actualization, something in the consciousness that is actualized, but it's really creative. But all energy is creative. All energy is creative. Sexual energy is creative, right? Air energy. Everything's creative, right? Science is creative, maths is creative, drawing and painting, making things is creative. I think that's, people use that as a big identifier, don't they? Like arts and crafts, which absolutely, but really like all energy is creative energy. all energy is creative energy. Oh, that's interesting. I've put the heart will appear in the sun. The heart will appear in the sun. If you observe, the heart will appear in the sun. The heart will appear in the sun. So there's been like talk of imagination a lot. I think maybe in the last reading I posted, like how the world is made, imagination. Because I'm talking about consciousness, the heart will appear in the sun. That could be like imagining something, or imagining, well, whatever you would be associating with your heart, right? Or something that has heart to you, something that represents the heart, that means something to your heart. They will appear in the sun. I mean, maybe the actual sunlight. It doesn't necessarily feel like a physical person will appear in front of you. It feels a bit more kind of abstract or metaphorical than that, because I'm mentioning the imagination and consciousness and creativity, right? What did I say at the beginning? Pure creative invention. It's that idea of like building it in your imagination. The heart will appear in the sun. Okay. But there was something with this creativity. I've written strong flex. So creativity is a strong flex over here. Strong flex. But there was also, because they came out with the moon. So there's two bears here. There's two bears. Two bears. So in this one, this was kind of talking about a kind of creative energy that's sort of held back. It's held back. Like, but here, like, it's held back, it's concealed. So that as well, that could be part of maybe something is becoming visible, or something is being observed by this energy here, is that something is becoming more visible. Because I've written like cyclical nature because of the bear twice, and that idea of like hibernation, right? So I've written like a cycle of creativity. Cycle of creativity is maybe beginning, or is, well, because I was talking about infinity, like the idea of infinite potential. It's like it's always there, right? Whether it's held back or displayed. The point is they've got it. They've got it. But a cycle of creativity, strong flex. So there might be, yeah, I'm going to say, actually, that something about the way that this one is showing up or expressing themselves, or expresses some aspect of who they are, is being sort of seen and understood, is more visible to this one because they're in this beginner's mind. So they're able to kind of see and understand something about this one that, oh, maybe that's why, maybe that's the idea of like concealed. just because like somebody holds something back as well doesn't mean that it's not displayed, right? Do you know what I mean? So like somebody might hold back on a particular kind of quality or trait that they have, or a skill that they possess, like something that they can do, but that doesn't mean that it's not sort of obvious to other people, or that it's not kind of inferred by other people. Do you know what I mean? Some things are just fucking blindingly obvious, aren't they? So it's like, if this one's got this strong creative flex, it might, they might hold some aspect of that back, or they might hold it back in large part, but there's something, I think, that's perhaps quite obvious, or is becoming obvious about it. And this beginner's mind, or just the state that arises out of generally having a beginner's mind, right? There's something about they're able to observe, this one's able to observe this now in this one. Something creative, maybe something sexual. Right, sexual energy, creative energy. The point is fire. It's kind of all the same in a sense. Okay. Right, so the moon. Yeah, this double bear thing, man. This double bear. So with the moon, it was this idea of like a well-lit path, okay? Because there's this reflection of light on the water. And then I've written the instinct is to follow this. Intuit, and so the instinct to follow it is like this intuitive response. Yeah, I think this is something about, right, because the moon can be an energy of kind of concealment and such things. The idea, you know, of darkness, we can see less, or we see differently by moonlight than we would in sunlight. And I was just talking about the sun. Sun and moon, the sun and moon here. Because remember, Leo is ruled by the sun. The sun and moon. Okay, hang on. Right. So the moon, I was saying, things are a bit more out of sight, or they're viewed differently in a kind of lunar energy, right? As opposed to the bright sunshine of the daytime, where we can see everything much clearer. Okay. So with this one, I put, will the instinct be to defend one's solitude? Protecting instincts. But with what I've been saying about the creativity and holding back, there might be this kind of say this very kind of bright, sunny and golden aspect to this one, right? Okay. And because it is bright, sunny and golden, metaphorically speaking, I want to say that it doesn't go unnoticed by others, right? It might not be, because it's not the sun card, right? It's Leo, and it's this black bear, and so there's something about it, kind of, it expresses in a particular way, right? But just because of the nature of what it is, it's got this like sunny, golden brightness to it. It's fiery, right? It's got this fiery nature. So there's something about that that's kind of, it is noticeable, right? So the thing with like the idea of like a held back creativity or a kind of concealed creativity is like, is it like a protective instinct? Like, you know, like don't display it too much, that protect it. Concealing it protects it. So it's kind of concealed, it's sort of hidden a little bit, isn't it? And I keep saying like, but this one can see now, they can observe and they can learn. There's no obstruction of progress. Because they're looking, right? They're looking at this one, the way the cards are kind of laid out. So there's a suggestion of this one observing this one. So someone might kind of be sort of protecting their sort of sunny energy, right? Which is could just kind of equate or understand as some really kind of powerful, bright part of who they are, right? Self-actualization. Like if they're, if they're kind of in it, if they're exhibiting it, they are self-actualizing because it is very much a part of who they are. But there's this like instinctive kind of, there's just a sort of instinct to protect, which might be necessary, right? That might, or it might have been necessary at other points. You know, I suppose most people have kind of had this, right? When you've been yourself, you've done something and it's kind of, it's ridiculed or it's mocked or it's kind of disregarded. Something like that, right? That doesn't make the thing any less precious, but there could be this kind of instinct then to protect it, to kind of cover it over, to obscure it a little bit, right? Not have it shine as brightly, to protect. Because the oracle card that came out with this was the Chambered Nautilus. Chambered Nautilus, excuse me. Okay. Right, okay. There's been an increase. Oh, okay. Right. So if here we were checking in to just confirm that the Hierophant is in fact in a state of beginner's mind, and that is wonderful, amazing, happy fucking days. Over here, it is saying there has been an increase in strength, because it was that idea of strength training again. So there you go, a little check-in, a little confirmation. Someone's in beginner's mind, somebody's strength training is going well. There has been an increase in strength, right? That's what the Chambered Nautilus was talking about. And because of that, they've had this increase in strength, so it has or will result in the proportional expansion. Okay, so yeah, right, they've strengthened something enough to use it to then move themselves along, because there's no obstruction of progress, remember, right? Yeah, because there was this idea of like growth factor came in, right? Growth factor, which indicates how much a quantity increases or decreases by each step. And then I've put perfect fit. It's increased. What's increased What needed to increase is increased, which would be some aspect of this strength training. Please refer back to the cosmic timing reading that is seeming ever more relevant to what I'm talking about here. Whatever needed to decrease or just outright fuck off, that's happening as well, because keep coming back up here to there's no obstruction to progress, okay? Right, I keep doing this. Right. Oh, right, and the golden ratio, this was quite funny, but because of the creativity and the sexuality as well. So the golden ratio is a geometric proportion that occurs in nature and mathematics, right, with the Fibonacci spiral. But it's a geometric proportion that's considered to be particularly pleasing to the eye. Sexuality and creativity. So this one, or some, right, so if they are creating something, let's say for example they are making something, it is pleasing to look at, or they are pleasing to look at, or someone is looking at them and finding that pleasing, right? Because they're particularly pleasing to the eye, and they've come out with this chambered nautilus, and they're this like what did I put? Strong flex of like creative energy, like fiery sexuality, strong flex. Someone's like, yep. Okay. So someone, something they're doing, it's pleasing, right? It doesn't have to be so aesthetically based. It's like, it's pleasing. I think it just pleases somebody or some people. There's the energy of being pleased over here. Excuse me. Okay, so all of those cards, they were kind of the main ones, right? They were sort of in dialogue and conversation with each other. And I was like, oh yeah, and I could see how it related back to this other reading that I'd done. And then so when the Page of Wands came out with conflict and the picture plan, I was just like, well, what the fuck is this? But this is where the astrology, because this just, it just seemed a bit kind of, I suppose, is separate the right word? Not really. It was just this idea of like, it's something that's kind of passing through, which was the astrology, right? That idea of like a transit. It's like an energy that's moving through. It's not sort of sticking around. It's not sticking around because it's this energy of conflict. And the picture plan talks really specifically about like being like a lure, right? It lures in things to feed on, and it uses like deception and illusion and trickery to kind of draw in its prey. So it was saying really clearly, like, don't get drawn into conflict, because it's just kind of this energy that's passing through. It's not that there's anything, I think, that's actually conflicting. Certainly not between or in relation to what I've just discussed with these other cards. That no obstruction of progress is, I keep being drawn back there. Okay, so it's like any kind of conflict, like don't get lured into it, don't get drawn in. It's just an energy that's passing through. It's transiting a situation. Be mindful not to get drawn into unnecessary conflicts. Things may not be as they appear, which might have something to do with like this instinct to protect, perhaps. So maybe they do, maybe there will be a time when the protection thing is kind of necessary. But again, it's like, it's just this, it's a passing through energy of conflict. It's not actually like a bona fide problem or something that is going to have to be sort of contended with. It's just sort of, it's moving through, it's just passing through. So the things may not be as they appear. It's just something might appear as more conflicting than it actually is, or it might appear as more bothersome or a bigger problem than it actually is. So you know your shit, use your discernment, but there is this recommendation, this heads up here really, that it's something that's quite brief, it's moving through. Okay. And if there are any kind of inner conflicts, just like take heart that they will pass. Okay. If you're feeling like, I mean, God, it's hard not to get drawn into your own inner conflict sometimes, isn't it? Fucking hell. But it's like, take heart, they will pass. It's just, it's like a moment. Maybe it's a bit of an extended one, not saying like just a few seconds, but it's saying like in the grand scheme of things, it's like a moment, it will pass, right? Take heart, the inner conflicts will pass. Okay. So that was the message of the page. So shall I read that reading that I was talking about? Shall I have a bit of a look at that? Yeah, shall we? Okay. I'll just kind of skim over it. Where is it? What year did I say? Look. February. Okay, specs on. Let's have a look. Right, so it was beliefs and values about the feminine, how the feminine aspect is viewed. They were beginning to change in some way. Okay, beginning to change in some way. I've written the beliefs were very established and entrenched. Yeah, and in that reading they came through as sort of potentially somewhat dogmatic, like rigid. The more dogmatic elements of traditional as opposed to something wanted, desired or suited. The things we are often told or taught, this is the way this is the way that is. This is what relationships look like, this is what success looks like, this has value, this does not. Because they were all the Venusian stuff, right? So the movement is the result of a really significant cycle of self-realization being completed. Motivations could be changing. Divergence from some kind of norm that's been held is a signifier of this bigger change. So, yeah, I've written like there's likely a kind of a pull or some kind of inclination towards something like different than usual. And yeah, and that would be like a manifest signifier of the truer self. Because the point was, right, that the beliefs, the things that you've been told or taught, they're not kind of things that you've learned and formed yourself. So no one can tell you what makes you happy, right? And people, what makes a relationship a good relationship for somebody or for people is actually quite dependent on the people involved in it, right? It's not that it looks specifically like this. And success as well, success especially, success can be defined and recognized and understood and show up for people in like loads of different ways, but you're told that it's really specific. It looks like this, right? If you have these things, you are successful. which, you know, we experience so much of life and then that's a fucking big load of shite, don't we? So, right. So yeah, so all of this, especially in connection to the material world and the energy of Taurus, because it's ruled by Venus. So some of those things include money, values, relationships, work, stability, love, connectedness, resources. All of those were things that were coming into focus, right? Or have been for like the past couple of years. Also like motivations and drive in relation to those things. The freedom to be, the freedom to move how desired towards what's actually wanted, not what we're taught we should want, right? Going after what you actually want, not what you thought you should want. Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah. Knowing what success looks like for you, what healthy relationships look like for you, what you find attractive and beautiful, all of those come under the influence of Venus, the feminine, right? Yeah, it feels real good and there's excitement. A kind of slow revelation in some regard though, and also processing and preparation that's happening. Trust it. The more trust, the greater the capacity gets. If uncertain amidst the newness, small and honest is a gentle mode to move in, okay? I think there is a bit of the past tense there, right? I think big shift, slow reveal, that's been happening for, well, you know, I pulled that on February the 6th, 2023 is when I published that, right? So maybe something specific happened around that actual time. But it's energy, right? So it's just kind of been like bounding and rolling through situations on a wider one, whether we were aware of it or not. But it's this zero starting point, right? Beautiful. Okay. Gorgeous. Thank you for watching. Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.